All right, so get this. Today we're diving into some pretty out there stuff. We're talking about antimatter entities. Yeah, you heard that right.
Antimatter entities.
Invisible, potentially all around us, and get this, maybe even interdimensional. Our source material is a conversation between two people
Okay.
reacting to the scientist who claims he's detected these entities using some seriously specialized telescopes.
Interesting.
So yeah, buckle up because things are about to get weird.
It's definitely a fascinating concept. The scientist at the center of all this is Dr. Ruggero Santilli, and he's known for taking a rather unconventional approach to physics.
Yeah, from what I gathered, he basically threw out the traditional physics playbook and created a whole new mathematical language just to study antimatter. What's that all about?
He calls it isomathematics.
Yeah.
It's designed to address what he sees as limitations in conventional math. When it comes to understanding antimatter,
Okay.
it gets pretty complex. But the gist is that he believes his approach allows for a more accurate description of antimatter's behavior and properties.
Okay. I'm going to need you to break that down a little further. Let's say, well, not a physicist. How would you explain isomathematics and why Dr. Santilli thinks it's so important?
Okay. Um, i- Imagine you're trying to describe the shape of a cloud using only squares.
Yeah.
You can get a rough approximation, but you'd miss a lot of the detail and nuance.
Right.
Dr. Santilli argues that traditional math is like those squares, useful for many things, but not quite the right tool for grasping the complexities of antimatter. So he created a new set of shapes, so to speak, to better fit the unique nature of antimatter.
Interesting analogy. So he's created this new math specifically for antimatter, and then he claims to have built telescopes based on this new math that can actually detect these antimatter entities. How is that even possible if they're invisible?
Right, it's not that the telescopes are seeing the entities themselves, it's more like they're picking up on the after effects of these entities interacting with regular matter. Think of it like seeing the ripples in a pond after a fish jumps. You don't see the fish itself,
Oh.
but you know it was there.
I see. So what are these ripples in the fabric of reality that Dr. Santilli's telescopes are supposedly detecting?
He says when matter and antimatter collide, they annihilate each other in a burst of energy. This energy creates patterns of light and dark that are invisible to normal telescopes, but can be picked up by his specialized cameras.
Huh.
He believes these patterns act like fingerprints, revealing the presence and movement of these otherwise undetectable entities.
Okay, so there are visual records of these energy bursts, but what I'm really curious about is this connection to the Vatican that the source material brings up. Something about a telescope with a very interesting name.
Ah, yes. They're referring to the LUCIFER telescope, which
Yeah.
stands for Large Binocular Telescope, Near-Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research.
Wow.
Quite a mouthful, isn't it?
They'll say MA. But the name itself certainly raises some eyebrows, especially in this context. What's the connection between this telescope and Dr. Santilli's work?
It's important to note that our source material is based on speculation. They don't present concrete evidence linking the two, but they suggest that the Vatican, with its advanced astronomical technology, could be using similar methods to observe these antimatter entities.
So they're drawing a parallel between the capabilities of these two powerful telescopes, both potentially capable of detecting things that are invisible to us. What I find particularly interesting is the disclosure aspect they bring up. What are they suggesting is being disclosed and by whom?
The speakers seem to be concerned that there's a hidden agenda at play, involving powerful institutions like the Vatican. They suggest that these institutions might be aware of these antimatter entities and are planning to reveal their existence to the public in a very controlled way.
Okay, so a potential coordinated reveal of a reality-shifting discovery, but why are they worried about it?
They seem to believe that the true nature of these entities might be downplayed or even misrepresented during this disclosure. They paint a picture where the public is led to believe these entities are benevolent or even ancestral beings, while in reality they could be something far more complex or even potentially sinister.
That's where things get really interesting and maybe a little unsettling. They seem to be suggesting that this disclosure might not be entirely truthful. Instead of just presenting the facts, they believe there might be an attempt to spin the narrative, to shape public perception in a specific way.
Exactly. They even draw connections to current events like the Super Bowl halftime show, suggesting that subtle messages and symbolism are already being woven into popular culture to prepare us for this grand reveal.
Now that's a pretty bold claim. Connecting a halftime show to a potential interdimensional cover-up is certainly not your everyday conversation starter. But before we dive into that rabbit hole, let's take a step back and examine Dr. Santilli's claims more closely. What specific types of antimatter entities does he claim to have detected? And how do they differ from one another?
That's a great question. And it takes us deeper into Dr. Santilli's unique perspective on the nature of these entities.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Dr. Santilli's research suggests there's not just one type of antimatter entity, but a whole spectrum of them. He claims to have identified several distinct categories. Based on the energy patterns they emit, some seem to be relatively small and localized, while others appear to be massive and extend over vast distances. He's even given them names, like dark entities and bright entities, based on the characteristics of their light emissions.
So he's created a whole classification system for these invisible beings. That's a pretty bold move considering most scientists don't even acknowledge their existence. What's the response been like from the scientific community?
As you might expect, there's a great deal of skepticism. Mainstream physics relies on very specific, well-established models of the universe, and Dr. Santilli's work challenges those models at a fundamental level.
Right.
Some critics argue that his observations can be explained by more conventional phenomena, like equipment errors or atmospheric disturbances. Others question the validity of his isomathematics, saying it lacks the rigor and peer review of traditional mathematical frameworks.
It sounds like a classic case of a maverick scientist shaking things up and facing resistance from the establishment. But let's play devil's advocate for a moment. If we assume, for the sake of argument, that Dr. Santilli is onto something, what are the implications of these different types of antimatter entities? Could they be interacting with our world in ways we don't even realize?
That's where things get really intriguing. If these entities are real, and as diverse as Dr. Santilli suggests, their potential influence on our reality could be profound. Imagine entities that can pass through solid matter, manipulate energy fields, or even affect our thoughts and emotions.
Ooh.
It opens up a whole realm of possibilities, some quite exciting, others perhaps a bit unsettling.
It's like suddenly realizing there's a whole invisible ecosystem existing alongside our own, potentially affecting us in ways we never imagined. But let's bring this back to that disclosure idea. If powerful institutions like the Vatican are aware of these entities, why would they want to control the narrative? What's their angle, so to speak?
That's a complex question, and we can only speculate based on the limited information we have. One possibility is that they're trying to avoid widespread panic or societal disruption. Imagine the chaos if the public suddenly learned that invisible, potentially powerful entities were all around them.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a concern. But couldn't it also be argued that the public has a right to know about such a fundamental aspect of reality, even if it's unsettling?
Absolutely, and that's one of the ethical dilemmas this hypothetical scenario presents. Who gets to decide what information is shared and how it's framed? What are the potential consequences of withholding such knowledge, or conversely, of releasing it without proper context or preparation?
It's a tricky situation, with potential for both good and bad outcomes depending on how it's handled. The source material definitely highlights the potential for manipulation and mistrust if this information isn't handled transparently, but I'm still stuck on the Super Bowl connection. How do they justify linking a halftime show to something as complex and potentially significant as the existence of antimatter entities?
The source material emphasizes symbolism and hidden messages, suggesting that those in the know are already embedding clues about this coming revelation into popular culture. They point to specific imagery and themes in the halftime show, particularly the use of light and shadow, as potential hints at this deeper reality.
So they're reading between the lines, so to speak, looking for deeper meaning in things that might seem superficial on the surface. It's almost like they're suggesting there's a secret code embedded in our culture, waiting to be deciphered by those who know what to look for.
That's one way to interpret it. And they tie this to the declaration of this year as the Year of Light, seeing it as more than just a scientific observance, but a symbolic gesture pointing towards this hidden truth.
It's certainly a provocative interpretation. It makes you wonder if there are other hidden messages embedded in our everyday lives that we're just not tuned into. But even if we entertain the possibility of this symbolism, it still doesn't answer the question of why. Why would those in power choose to reveal this information? Through subtle hints and coded messages, instead of just coming out and saying it.
The source material suggests they may be trying to gradually acclimate the public to the idea, to soften the blow, so to speak.
Yeah.
Perhaps they believe that a sudden unprepared announcement would be too disruptive, or even dangerous.
It's like they're slowly dipping our toes into the cosmic pool, instead of just pushing us in head first. But this raises another question for me. What if this disclosure, this controlled release of information, is just the tip of the iceberg? What if there's even more to this story than they're letting on?
That's a fascinating thought. And it takes us into the realm of speculation and what ifs.
Okay, let's venture into that realm for a bit. What if this whole antimatter entities thing, even with this potential staged reveal, is just scratching the surface of something much bigger?
It's definitely a possibility.
Like what?
What if these entities aren't just passive observers? What if they're actively interacting with our world in ways we haven't even begun to comprehend?
Okay, now my mind is really spinning. We're talking potentially interdimensional beings that could be influencing us without us even realizing it. What kind of influence are we talking about?
That's where things get really speculative. But the source material hints at some possibilities. They suggest that these entities might be able to manipulate energy, perhaps even influence our thoughts or emotions.
So not just observing us, but potentially pulling the strings? That's a pretty big leap from detecting light and dark patterns with a telescope.
It is. And it's important to remember that this is all based on speculation and interpretation. There's no concrete scientific evidence to support the claim that these entities are capable of such influence. But the source material encourages us to consider the possibilities, to think outside the box of our current understanding.
I appreciate that. It's easy to get caught up in the what ifs and lose sight of what we actually know. But I think it's important to have these conversations, to explore the fringes of our understanding, even if it leads us into uncharted territory.
I agree. The unknown can be unsettling, but it can also be a source of wonder and inspiration. It pushes us to question our assumptions, to seek out new knowledge, and to expand our horizons.
So where does this leave us? We've explored Dr. Santilli's claims, delved into the potential implications of his findings, and even ventured into the realm of speculation about the Vatican and a possible disclosure agenda. What's the takeaway for our listener?
I think the key takeaway is that there's still so much we don't know about the universe and our place in it. Dr. Santilli's work, whether ultimately validated or not, challenges us to question the limits of our knowledge and to consider possibilities that might seem outlandish at first glance.
It reminds us that the boundaries of science are constantly being pushed, that what we consider impossible today might be commonplace tomorrow. And that's pretty exciting, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's a reminder to stay curious, to keep asking questions, and to never stop exploring the mysteries of the universe. Who knows what incredible discoveries await us just beyond the horizon of our current understanding?
Well said. And to our listener out there, we encourage you to do just that. Keep an open mind, explore different perspectives, and never be afraid to question the accepted narrative. The universe is vast and full of wonders, and there's always more to learn, more to discover, more to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.